oath to protect the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. So those are my working documents. That's the framework where I work from. Okay, it is up to the West to determine what is right for them, and the same way it is up to Ghana to determine what is right for her. Article 2.4 of the UN Charter establishes the sovereignty of the Ghanaian state. Moses Fuamwening made reference to a European court ruling. The highest human rights court in the European Union is the European Court of Justice. The European Court of Justice has established that homosexual rights are not absolute and are not definite, and that every member state of the European Union is at liberty to determine whether you give rights or not. Now let's break it down. Of the countries in Europe, not the European Union, in Europe, only 18 have made homosexuality or gay marriage legal. Only 18. 11 have given some form of recognition to civil unions, not marriage. Countries like Italy and co, you cannot go and have a homosexual marriage in Italy.
But you can have a homosexual relationship.
You can have, yes.
Okay.
So some kind of partnership. 22, the largest number of European countries, 22, have refused to give legal status to homosexuality in Europe.
Including Hungary. We had that recently.
Yes.
The football
and I can even give you I can give you the list of the countries. Again, in the whole world, 193 countries and 2 territories. The 2 territories being the Vatican and Palestine. If you make them together, 195 countries in the United Nations. Only 30 have given legal status to homosexuality. So this is an extreme minority that cannot be used to impose on us as though we are the odd ones out. 165 countries stand with Ghana in our position on criminalization.
Let me come to you in the culture, because you said that your foundation is the culture.
Yes.
If we read the bond of 1844, what was happening there is that the British people were telling the Fanti chiefs to abandon some of the culture. They named human sacrifice as some of the culture that existed, and it was grounded in culture. Human sacrifice in 1844 was grounded in culture. Fast forward 2021, human sacrifice is no longer part of the culture. So when you ground this idea in culture, do you consider that perhaps a time may come when the culture may shift? Because our culture has shifted from guaranteeing or accepting human sacrifice to now saying that is not good.
Well, your premise is counterproductive, Paul. Human sacrifice, by all intents and purposes, is not a forward thinking ideology.
But a chief in Ghana in 1725,
and so if our culture has evolved positively to see that human sacrifices are not a thing, that's a positive step we've taken. Are you asking us, after taking such a positive step, to then take a retrogressive step, to then say that we should reform our culture to go and accept something which, as recently as 1950, was termed a mental disorder in the United States? Until 30 years ago, the WHO still saw homosexuality as a mental disorder.
30 years is a long time.
Well, ask yourself, on what basis the WHO in 30 years ago decide that homosexuality is no longer a mental disorder? On what basis did the US in 1952 determine that homosexuality is no longer a mental disorder? Not science, a political vote. It was a vote of politicians, not science. In fact, the biggest scientific research into humankind is the Human Genome Project. The Human Genome Project has sequenced the human genome, and this is to squash that argument that homosexuality is people are born that way. The Human Genome Project, sequenced the human genome to the least. It identified what makes you phlegmatic, what makes you choleric, what makes you sanguine, what even makes you prone to cancer. All of those minute details have been sequenced. However, not one gene in the human genome sequence has been found to be related to homosexuality. There is no homosexual gene. You have a gene.
People who were born in the coastal areas in Ghana will disagree, because we know the Kojo Bisia situation. You've heard about it. In Takrade and other places, a man born and behaves like no one in secondary school used to laugh at them.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul. you've got biological challenges. When you say there is something that's normal, it suggests that there's also an abnormality. And so you've got abnormalities, human abnormalities, biological abnormalities. And we can use Caster Semenya as an example. She's a global figure. Caster Semenya had abnormally high levels, because every human being, first and foremost, let's establish that every human being has testosterone and estrogen. Testosterone is what makes you a man. Estrogen is what makes you a woman. There is a right balance that allows you be effeminate or masculine. Now, Caster Semenya is biologically a woman. However, her endocrinological studies of her body physiology show that her testosterone levels are higher than what it should be for a woman, and her estrogen levels are lower. The IAAF, which is an international athletics federation, determined that her levels of testosterone were too high for her to be able to compete in feminine sports. She subjected herself to hormonal treatment, endocrinological treatment, to drop her testosterone levels to acceptable levels to allow her compete as a woman for IAAF. So who says that someone who is being effeminate, or there are men who develop full-grown breasts, that in itself is an anomaly that is linked to hormonal imbalances? This is correctable via science. Science can correct it.
So the point you're making is that when we identify these things, we shouldn't call them a right. We shouldn't escalate them
but
to
homosexuality
be
is
a
not
right.
a right.
Well, that's what they say.
It's not a right. No,
I know you disagree, but I'm just saying that
the fact that they say it, the fact that they say it doesn't make it real.
Let's talk about
make it correct.
racial discrimination as an idea, as a culture, 75 years ago. The world has
Paul,
evolved.
Respectfully, racial discrimination has nothing to do with my bill.
Yeah, but the world has evolved into thinking that a black person was less of a human being. The world used to think like that. The world has evolved away from that.
So are you telling me that the world is going to evolve to a place where we can also become transnational? That's the level of... I'm showing you the absurdity of the proposition by the LGBTQ community. A transnational person, if I was transnational, if you look at my body complexion, I have the same complexion as Idris Elba, who's an American citizen.
He's an African American.
Yes, but he's an American citizen.
But he's an African American.
But he's American.
So African is the culture.
If I begin to feel transnational, then I think that I am American trapped in a Ghanaian body. And so I should be allowed...
Is that not ridiculous?
That's the ridiculousness of a man, grown man, with his genitalia at 28 years old or 25 years old, telling you that he now feels feminine. And so he wants to use the same public washroom as your 6-year-old daughter. That's the absurdity. I'm happy you're seeing it. Or I'm transfinancial.
What's transfinancial?
I have 5,000 cedis to my name in my bank account. Only 3 zeros to the 5. And so you say I'm not that rich. I'm broke. But I think I am a rich man. No, I believe I am rich. And so I should be able to walk into
but that's
Silver
not in
Star.
your body. That's not in your body. That's esoteric. That's not in their body. The man who feels as a woman is in his body.
But the feeling is in his body. The feeling of wealth is in my body.
No, that's a thought.
But the feminine... The man who thinks he's feminine, is it not a thought?
That's mind. The other one is matter.
No.
The feeling inside the skin that I'm a woman is not mind.
It's a thought process that makes you believe that despite the fact that you are a man, you think that you are a woman. Despite the fact that I am broke, I think that I am rich. And so if you believe that the man's thinking that he's a woman is a right, my thinking that I am rich should be a right. I should be able to walk to Silver Star and order the latest Maybach and tell them to go to my bank and tell my bank to honor the check I've written, irrespective of the 3 zeros against the 5.
That's
because I believe...
That's transactional. That's contract transactional. That's different. That's ridiculous.
Well, at the Olympic Games going on, male athletes, male transgender athletes have kicked women off Olympic slots.
That means what? They won the race?
In fact, the women were dropped off their national teams for transgender men. Do you know what the Olympics does for an athlete? That's transactional. An athlete leaves for the Olympics.
No, I don't understand. So when they arrive at the games or when they are coming from their country?
U.S. Olympic contingent, female athletes were dropped.
Regular females.
Regular females were dropped for transgender men who are now identifying as women. Do not forget, because of their enhanced testosterone level,
they'll be stronger. Yeah.
they make better qualifying times than the women. That's the absurdity that we're talking about. And Paul, you see, this goes further than just the union. People think that homosexuality is just about the union. In a country like Finland in the EU, they have gone even beyond just the unions. They've now gone to the position where they allow you have sex with your domestic animal, so long as you do not bring harm to
bestiality.
it.
That's,
yes.
So
those are rights. Yeah. And then you see, now I always make the question.
That's offensive. That's horrible.
Where do you draw the line? Before 1952, homosexuality was in the same category as pedophilia, as necrophilia, as schizophrenia, as mental disorders. There is no science to back why it was dropped from those categories. And the point we keep making here is, look, when I talk about, in our bill, we talk about the corrective nature. We offer support. If you read the bill, we offer support to persons who are victims of homosexuality. Because there are persons today who are practicing homosexuality not by choice. They've been dragged into it by economic circumstances, by social pressures, and it becomes an addiction like drugs and alcohol, and they need help. We have met with some of these people. Some of these people have been helped already in this country, and they've broken the cycle. But you need a system where they can recant and get the help. So even when you are arrested under this bill, if it becomes law, whilst you're going through prosecution, even after sentencing, you can always recant and put yourself through a reformative process.
That's in the bill.
It's in the bill.
Because I was going to ask you that. Why are you jailing them?
Well, that's why
should they go to prison?
Anybody who will end up going to jail under this law is somebody who has made a conscious decision that they want to perpetuate their perversion.
So what do you anticipate? Kofi and Kwabena are found kissing in front of Metro TV. Assuming this bill was law, what will happen?
They would have flouted Section 10 of the law, which is the prohibition of gross indecency. They're going to be put before court.
Somebody must report them.
Yes, someone will report them.
And the person must have filmed it for evidence.
There needs to be evidence of that, or at least witnesses who are going to give material evidence in court. Those witnesses who are going to report under Section 5 of this bill have a duty to report. When they report to lawful authority, which is the police, or if they cannot report to a police, they can report to a traditional authority or political authority, and the traditional and political authority have 7 days to report it to the police and assist in the investigation. Now, in the course of possibly even the reportage or handing them over to the police, the individuals who saw Kojo and Kwesi kissing are minded not to treat them in any extrajudicial manner. So you cannot slap them. You cannot physically assault them or verbally harass them. This law criminalizes that. If you, in arresting them or in reporting them, verbally harass them or physically assault them, you could go to jail for up to 3 years. It's in the bill, Section 22.
If they report that you were harassing them.
Absolutely. So we actually
but then they go to police station and what happens?
Then the police will bring them before court for prosecution.
And they are jailed for 10 years?
No.
What happens?
The sentencing regime here for the offense of homosexuality in any of its manifestations is a maximum of 5 years. Maximum of 5 years. The 10 years.
But why should they be jailed at all? That's
because they've made a decision to breach the law. If you are a victim who is unwillingly engaging in the act, you have the opportunity to recant, go through a reformative process, and if you successfully go through the reformative process, you would escape jail time.
So if we are consenting adults, what happens?
Well, Paul, you see,
two consenting adults, we go to jail for 5 years.
Well, the point you must understand here is that your rights, you do not have those rights to engage in what you want to do. That's why society has framed the boundaries of what is legal and not legal. I'll give you a typical example, and I've been using this example quite well. It really takes up the homosexual community. They don't like it when I do it. But, you know, when you take the 1992 Constitution, sexual preferences are not a right in Section 5. Section 5 is what gives you the rights. Sexual preferences are not a right. However, religious belief is a fundamental right in the 1992 Constitution.
Okay.
Good. Now, are you aware that what we believe as religious belief, as a right, is subjective. Some people believe that they observe the purest form of Christianity when they engage in crusades. Like you saw the Catholics in Ireland carry out for over 20 years against the Anglican British monarchy. It was in the name of God. The Catholic Church actually spread its tentacles across the world in the name of crusade, bloodshed. But that today we deem to be extreme Christian religious belief. Islamic State, the individuals, the radical clerics who support the jihad believe that they are practicing the purest form of Islam, and that what they are doing is a holy war, jihad. However, you and I and the larger part of society have sat down and determined that, look, moderate Christianity, moderate Islam, and even moderate traditional beliefs, there are still traditional believers who believe in human sacrifices. If you do that today, we will arrest you for murder. Okay? So all the religions, we have agreed that a moderate form of belief is what is acceptable to society. Your extreme form, even though it is a fundamental right, has been criminalized under the Anti-Terrorism Act. And so we will call an extreme Christian cleric or an extreme Muslim cleric as a radicalized person and a terrorist, and curtail their rights, because do not forget, Acts chapter 5 gives you your rights. Chapter 6 and even in chapter 5, there are 3 bases on which your rights can be curtailed: public health, public safety, and public morals. The 1992 Constitution is clear on those. And so you have curtailed the religious beliefs of an individual who believes he's carrying out the purest form of Christianity or Islam or traditional belief, because larger society think that it is extreme. We've called him a terrorist. On the basis of that, Metro TV, Paul, you will not give an extremely radicalized cleric an opportunity to come and sit on your show, Good Evening Ghana, and propagate extreme religious beliefs, would you? But so you are curtailing his fundamental right. However, a sexual preference, which is not even a fundamental right, is telling us that after the majority of us have determined that we find that kind of sexuality perversive and against our culture on the basis of public morals and public health considerations, we are curtailing those preferences because they're not rights. We're curtailing those preferences. People don't understand why we should criminalize the advocacy of something that has been deemed illegal. If you would not advocate terrorism, you would not advocate jihad, why do you want to advocate for homosexuality? If you would not show movies that glorify jihad, why do you want to show movies that glorify homosexuality?
Let me tell you why. You see, you are passing this bill, assuming the bill is passed. Shouldn't there be another movement within the same parliament to seek an amendment to cancel this bill? Can there not be? And if that process begins, it will begin with advocacy. So the bill is passed. We call it whatever, act something of the 7th parliament or the 8th parliament. So it's okay. So I come to parliament next year, I say, no, this bill, we need to do something about it. So I begin to talk to people that this bill, let's call it some George bill, we need to bring an amendment to cancel the fundamental parts of it. We begin an advocacy in that regard. That advocacy is criminalized. Why?
Well, if in Touchwood, after this bill is passed, well, clearly not in the parliament I will be in, but if any group of members of parliament think that they want to bring an amendment or bring an action to repeal this bill after it's become law, that will become a legal process.
Yes.
It will become
it will need advocacy.
No. The legal processes are not about advocacy. Today, what I am advocating is proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values.
Determined by you and the sponsors.
That's what we're advocating.
Yes.
That's what we're advocating. So when people say it's an anti-LGBTQ bill, I ask them who's promoting that.
But I saw something on Facebook. Somebody was asking you, when you say proper human sexual behavior,
sexual
and
rights,
Ghanaian values,
yes,
why are you not prohibiting adultery, fornication in the bill?
Because this is not a morality bill. I'm not a morality
But
police.
is adultery not proper?
This is an
is adultery not against proper sexual behavior?
This is an expansion of Section 104 of your Criminal Offences Act, which deals with unnatural carnal knowledge. Unnatural carnal knowledge doesn't go into the realms of morality. Adultery, and that's why when we started, I said to you, I am not legislating religion or my religious beliefs. I am legislating our cultural values and principles.
Correct. Adultery.
Good.
In the culture.
As far as I'm concerned, this bill, expanding on Section 104, which is the object of the bill. This is not an omnibus bill that's dealing with all moral issues. I'm not a morality.
Why are you calling adultery moral and homosexuality bad sexual behavior?
Because or
lesbianism?
What makes you deem adultery as bad as your religious belief?
Well, cultural.
No.
Does our culture permit it?
Show me a culture that speaks out against adultery in Ghana. Show me.
Well, not speaks out, but the culture in Ghana is where I'm married to polygamy, 4 women.
Especially when you are in most of our cultural settings, most of the polygamous marriages, the additional wives most times are as a result of extramarital affairs. The man is a farmer, he's a fisherman, he's married to 1 wife, he's having kids, he meets another woman, he has an extramarital affair, she takes seed, and then per our customs, he goes to see her family members, and then he marries her, and she becomes a second wife. Or he marries her and impregnates her.
So that adultery is a process towards polygamy.
Ultimately, adultery is a Christian phenomenon. It's an Abrahamic religion phenomenon. So it is in Islam, it's in Judaism. But these are religious concepts.
What about fornication? What about our culture and fornication?
I am speaking legislation. Paul, I am not here to discuss morality. I am here to discuss a bill that criminalizes homosexuality.
And lesbianism.
Well, homosexuality encompasses all of them.
Yeah. And queer.
So
and
homosexuality,
people who want to accommodate them.
Homosexuality is LGBTQIAAP plus.
Who is the P?
Pansexual.
What's
and
that?
That's the worst of all.
What's that?
They have sexual attractions to any and everything. So today, a pansexual woman will have sex with you. Tomorrow, she'll have sex with a lady. The next day, she'll have sex with this bottle. They have sex with animate and inanimate objects. The next day, she'll have sex with a dog. They have no restrictions. There are no boundaries. At least a gay person...
That's how they feel?
Yes. Whatever they feel attracted to at a point in time is gay. A gay person
including
has
an inanimate object.
Including... I said they... some of them have gone as far as marrying trees. Trees. Yeah. Cho.
Wow.
Yes. You see, and that's the weirdness of that category. Because all the other categories even have some kind of restrictions. A lesbian is attracted primarily to women as a woman. A gay is attracted primarily to men as a man. But pansexuals, Charlie, they are...
Do we have some text message? I have only 1 minute to go. Do we have some text messages?
1 minute before the show is up?
No, we can go on. We can go on. If some judges here, we'll give you some 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Director, please give us some 5 more minutes. Do you have some text messages on what we just done?
Yes.
Okay, let's take it. Cameraman, where are the cameramen?
Yeah.
they need, okay, the camera there. Let's hear you.
Isifu Adan Winnie Felix Khan says, Sam George, that's a very brilliant presentation. God is with you. Kirk Baron says, Sam George is very deep. You can hate him, but he is courageous. And Mohammed D. Al Hassan says, good one there, Sam.
Kweku Kakari Menu says, good evening, Ghana official. Tell Sam that the CEO of Apple Company, Tim Cook, is gay. So instead of putting LGBTQ in prison, we can put them in reformation homes and correctional facilities. Because one day, one could one day produce a laptop to replace the Apple laptop he is using. Thank you.
Eric Nana Entry says, Mr. Sam George, I apologize to you for underestimating your intelligence. You have proved me wrong tonight. I am very impressed with your submissions. God bless you. I wish you to do same when it comes to other national issues. I salute you tonight.
Emmanuel Ankoma Entry says, precise, concise, excellent in delivery, and splendid in diction. In fact, the future NDC government should appoint Adra St. George as a Minister for Gender and Social Protection and forgets persons like Oyelita and Rachel Apostolid.
Ines Aqua says, when a kleptomaniac is arrested, he or she is in prison despite the disability. I believe it's the same reason for homosexuals under the Act, with the added advantage of reform.
Sam Nanayao Chilling says, Sam George, I normally don't agree with you on many issues, but this one, I am very impressed. Ghana is behind you.
Dennis Edusa says, Sam George, you have taken over the fight from lawyer Fo Amwening. Our generation will have hope because of young fighters like you and 7 other sponsors.
Opare Into Ini says, great presentation, Sam George, well researched. And Eric Kofi Esio Akon says, Paul, we appreciate the new program structure. However, I suggest the news starts between 9 to 9:15 so that we can enjoy Good Evening Ghana uninterrupted from 9:15 till 11. Kindly consider this.
Kweku Bamfo says, argument done, Dzata, indeed an honorable. Nanaba Nana Sapon says, Sam George is a gem. I've fallen in love with his demeanor.
And it's a lady who's saying that?
Yes.
Nanaba?
Yes.
Uncle Sam?
I'm married under the ordinance. Don't worry.
Okay, go on.
Dakwa Kweku says that I am very impressed with Sam's presentation. God bless you, from Pastor Solomon at Weija. And then Nana Ose Kweku Ufori says, Paul, we need to bring Sam George back to the studio, not on political issues, but we need a clearer understanding in this bill by points to points in the act. Nicholas Kinkujo says, kudos to the team. I'm very impressed with today's show, and a plus for the live extension of time on television.
Samboy B says, Paul, are you saying if Bob Risky was a footballer, he or she can represent Niger women football players in any tournament? And
Bob Risky is a what is he?
Transgender.
He's a transgender from
Nigeria.
man to woman.
Yeah, from
Yes.
man to woman.
Okay, and the question is whether he can play for the Nigerian ladies team.
Yes.
Yeah, but he should be able to.
Why should he be able?
But he's a woman.
He's not. He's a man.
Okay.
Okay, the Promise FS says, Sam George is such a brilliant gentleman. Samuel Anthony says, Honorable Sam George, God bless you, epitome of pure wisdom.
Kwame J says, and this is very important, if we could deal with it. Please, I want Sam George's take on the U.S. Embassy hoisting the LGBT plus rights flag in Ghana. The embassy
Today?
premises. Yes, today.
What do you want to say about
Well, it's part of the posturing of the pro-LGBT community. You know, the U.S. has LGBTQ now as one of its foreign policy initiatives. I believe
foreign
that-
policy initiatives?
Yes, it's
From
now-
the United States?
Yes, from
Official
the
State Department?
Official, yes. So now there is an official LGBTQ advocate to the world, an ambassador for LGBTQ. And recently, the United States Embassy in Ghana put out an advertisement seeking for an advocate for LGBTQ here in Ghana. Okay, I believe that the U.S. Embassy must be minded by the Vienna Convention. The Vienna Convention on Diplomacy states that diplomats must be respectful of the local laws of their host country. If the host country criminalizes, as it is today, homosexuality in our country, it is an affront to the sovereignty of the state hoisting an LGBTQ flag in our country. The U.S. ambassador, this directive came from the State Department, and the flags were to be hoisted in June, because June is Gay Pride Month. The U.S. Embassy in Ghana did not do it. Because of the discussion on the passage of this bill, they're trying to make a grandstand position. It's needless showmanship, okay? Because the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia has not hoisted a flag. And I would demand or expect the Flagstaff House to instruct the foreign minister to summon the U.S. ambassador.
Will you put an urgent question for the foreign minister in parliament?
That's an opportunity. That's something that's open to us, because you must respect states are equal before the law. And let us understand one thing, that if the U.S. is talking about human rights, just 2 months ago, before the UN Assembly, a human rights bill was put before Parliament, the UN General Assembly. The United States blocked the passage of the human rights bill. The US blocked it. And so we should ask ourselves a simple fundamental question. What rights is the US pushing, and what are they trying to? I mean, it's an affront to our sovereignty.
Okay, we have to end it here. We'll bring Sam George back. Thank you, both of you. You have a question? No?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear you.
I'd like to ask if you are concerned about Ghana becoming a pariah state in case this is passed.
Yeah.
This bill actually is the best LGBTQ bill in the world so far. We've looked at almost all the legislation that exists. In fact, the Ugandan bill is called Kill the Gays. The Kill the Gays Bill Act. It's been passed into law. Uganda has not been made a pariah state. Nigeria has actually imposed the death penalty for homosexuality in Nigeria. Nigeria has not been blacklisted and called a pariah state. Ghana, that has a legislation that ensures the fundamental rights of a free trial in court for persons accused. Ghana, that has a reformative process in our law, in our bill, actually stands in better legal stead in the International Committee of Nations, that we should not under any circumstances be blacklisted, except Ghanaians on their own go and lobby the foreign countries to blacklist us. But nobody can blacklist us, because I keep saying this bill preaches love and not hate. And even Jesus Christ, who is the epitome of love, he loves sinners, but there's a punishment for sin when you sin.
Okay, we'll leave it here. Oh, you wanted another question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to know what some of the reformative processes are for those who will be jailed.
So there is approved medical care, and you can see that in between the section 17 or clause 17 to 23 of the bill, where we have approved medical care that is both psychological, physiological, medical, biological, and endocrinological. So because there are different kinds of requirements. Someone's is largely hormonal, and so that would require endocrinological. Someone is more of a psychological thing. It's become an addiction. He needs to have psychological care to break that cycle. So depending on your challenge and the kind of support that you will get, and the service providers are going to be accredited by HEFRA, the Medical Health Authority, the Mental Health Authority, Ghana Medical Association, and the Ghana Council of Psychologists. They are going to give the licensing for the service providers. The service providers exist already, but right now we want to create a harmonized system that would supervise the delivery of this service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll leave it here. Thank you. We'll call on you again. I'm sure you would oblige when we do. Thank you for watching. It's been a long night. It's 8 minutes past, actually 9 minutes past the top of the hour at 11 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Good night.